U.S. Secretary of State and the Russian Foreign Minister are meeting in Vienna to discuss the conflict in Syria. They're holding talks along with Turkey's Foreign Minister Feridun Sinirlioğlu and Saudi Arabian counterpart Adel al-Jubeir. On Thursday, Adel al-Jubeir said Russia's actions in Syria are fueling the country's war. Let's get more on this. Simon McGregor-Wood is following the story for us, and he joins us live from London. Now, Simon, this is a difficult one, you must admit, particularly in terms of the different opinions regarding the political fate of Bashar al-Assad. What are the chances of this meeting will produce anything meaningful in terms of an agreement?
Well, I would urge you not to hold your breath for any significant diplomatic or strategic breakthroughs. I guess an optimist would say it's good that these four parties are sitting around the table. By the way, the Russian Minister Lavrov will join the Americans, excuse me, the Turk and the Saudi Arabian foreign ministers in the next hour or so. I think the key issue here is the extent to which you have two groups around the table. Those that see the removal of President Bashar al-Assad from Syria immediately as being an absolute prerequisite for political progress. That's the United States, that's certainly Saudi Arabia, and certainly Turkey, against Russia, who clearly, with their 3-week-old military campaign, according to many, are very keen to see President Assad as going forward and being part of whatever political strategic vision they may have for the future of Syria. Closing the gap between the pro-Assad and the anti-Assad, this kind of meeting, I think, is going to be very, very difficult.
Well, looking into that 3-week military operation, I'm sure that who Russia is targeting with its airstrikes will also be something the foreign ministers discuss.
Absolutely. Sergei Lavrov has said that he will go to Vienna today to explain exactly what the Russian military mission is. I think both the United States and their regional counterparts are very skeptical. There is one report that was discussed at the UN yesterday, on Thursday, in which it said that of the 780 Russian airstrikes on Syrian territories so far, 80% have targeted non-ISIL, non-Daesh targets. The suspicion clearly is that the Russian military strikes are as much about supporting President Assad and allowing his military forces some breathing space as they are about confronting terrorism and ISIL. So I think that is, again, going to be a very significant point of contention. Lavrov says he wants to build a grand coalition against ISIL. I think the other players around the table at the Grand Hotel in Vienna are going to be very skeptical about what it's really designed for.
All right, Simon McGregor-Wood, live from London. We thank you for that update. Let's cross over to Moscow now. Ollie Barrett joins us live from there. Ollie, now, we just heard about Sergei Lavrov's desire to form this grand coalition. Tell us more about what Moscow hopes that will achieve from these talks in Vienna.
That's right, Alexander, and Vladimir Putin has been talking this week about the need for greater international cooperation when it comes to the Syrian crisis, and he's talking militarily as well as diplomatically and politically. He's called, for example, for Syrian government forces, Iraqi government forces and Kurdish Peshmerga forces to work together to fight Daesh and terrorist groups inside Syria. That's perhaps a tall order, and perhaps the idea of the Americans coming on in any way in terms of military cooperation, which Vladimir Putin has also mentioned, is the tallest order of all, the least likely outcome of these talks, with the Americans having said all along that they believe the Russian military strategy inside Syria is misguided. Diplomatically and politically, for all of the reasons that Simon was just outlining, it's also a stretch as well because of the opposition of many in that room to the idea of President Bashar al-Assad staying in power at all. Moscow, having had Bashar al-Assad here for talks this week, clearly showing its faith in the Syrian leader and its continued support for him. So there remain key differences between the foreign ministers around that table in Vienna.
I want to pick up on that. Given that Bashar al-Assad was in Moscow earlier this week, do you think that Russia has a better chance than most to broker a deal to deal diplomatically to the end of the Syrian conflict?
Russia feels so absolutely. Part of the reason for having Bashar al-Assad here in Moscow was to demonstrate to the world not only that in the Russian view military strikes in Syria are leading to that added confidence for Bashar al-Assad to be able to travel abroad for the first time since 2011, but also to show the world that in Russia's view there can be no solution to the Syrian crisis without Russia's involvement because of the relationship with Bashar al-Assad and his government and the support for his government that Russia has shown right since the beginning of Syria's civil war. Russia clearly placing itself front and center of this diplomatic push when it comes to Syria. Russia wants to show that it's still a player in the Middle East and is key to any solutions to the Syrian crisis.
We'll leave it at that note. Thank you, Ollie Barrett, live from Moscow.